First story. Entitled Parents Abuse, Neglect Me, Favoring My Bully Siblings. Now refused to send me to the school I got selected, saying he don't have funds, but found my siblings rejected applications to the same school. So I asked my dad, and he physically assaulted me. Then I found out he is my mom's app, and they stole me from my father, so I contacted him, who took me and called CPS and police on my NC family. Hey, so first things first. My girlfriend recommended that I share this story because it is something that everyone might enjoy. So I decided that I would post it here, under a throwaway. Mostly because my previous posts on my main page would all but make my Earl ID apparent, and because I do not want the artificial boost to my karma. Growing up, I thought that I had a good relationship with my parents' mom and dad, stepdad, and my 3 younger siblings YB1, YS, and YB2. However, around 5th grade, my relationship had begun to change. I had always exceeded expectations at school, so my parents sent me to a private school that had really good test scores, and students had good placements in colleges later on. However, my last year, I was really excited to go on to a private middle school that all of my friends and I had gotten accepted into. Unfortunately, at that time, my parents sat me down and explained to me that they did not have the money to pay for my tuition, and had to withdraw YB1 and YS's applications to the elementary school that I had gone to for the same reason. So, I would be enrolled in the local public middle school the following year. Towards the end of 5th grade, we were doing science class, and my teacher started our Introduction to Genetics unit. That lesson has stayed with me since, because my appearance is so different compared to that of my parents. As of now, I'm in my 20s, and I share literally no features with my mom. So, I started to begin asking my teacher some very difficult questions about genetics in class, and after answering which traits tend to be dominant, she realized where I was going and immediately shut me down. Over that summer, I read pretty much every book I could on the subject before I did something dumb. I went to my dad and asked him if I was adopted. This conversation didn't end well. I don't remember everything that was said, but it escalated very quickly and ended with him hitting me. My dad hit me so hard that he actually broke my right cheekbone. My mom rushed me to the hospital, and I was coached into saying that I was accidentally hit by a doorknob. I eventually had to repeat the same thing to CPS. After a week back from the hospital, my mom and dad revealed to me that he was actually my stepdad. When they were in college, my mom was dating a guy who she said was a real arsehole. When they found out that she was pregnant, he left her. But my stepdad stepped up and did everything that he could, and they put his name on my birth certificate. My mom then explained that when I confronted my stepdad, it really hurt him, and lashed out in anger. It was wrong, and they both asked for forgiveness. Unfortunately, I agreed. We seemed to go back to being a somewhat normal family again. But I began to notice things that I hadn't before. Whenever my younger siblings needed something, my mom and stepdad would drop everything to help them. Meanwhile, I was told to figure it out myself. For birthdays, I would get next to no attention, usually just a hug from my mom. I didn't even get a cake after I turned 6. Meanwhile, my siblings would get a party, and the work would be pulled out for them. My stepdad would come back from work and want nothing to do with me, even as a little kid. I was a massive nerd who wanted to go to museums and all those nerdy kid things and had zero interest in sports. My brothers were the exact opposite, and he spent much of his free time playing or watching sports with them. If my brothers wanted to go to see a game or something, my stepdad would move heaven and earth to bring them, and usually drag me along. If I wanted to see the new Devonian fossil exhibit at the local museum, there was no way I could go because he was busy. Once he even told me, "Sorry, but that basketball game took up your entire entertainment budget this month." BTW, that was the same game when he saw that I had brought my copy of Cosmos. He threw it out because I shouldn't have brought a book to a family event. There were several more things my parents did that showed their favoritism when I was younger. But this is already going to be a long post. What I do want to point out is that this wasn't a new behavior that developed after the truth came out. This had been ongoing over the years, and I just chalked it to me being the eldest sibling. Middle school was absolutely hell. I was and still am an introvert who would usually rather be by himself reading than talking to people. In my old school, I was still the odd one out, but I didn't get singled out for it and had friends. At the public school, I was quickly singled out and bullied, which caused my mental health to severely decline, and my parents refused to intervene because it would toughen you up. I was bullied, but I fought back, and then they became my friends. That's just how guys become friends. Of course, I am sure anyone here can correctly assume that the facility was about as helpful. I did try to fight back once, and all it did was get 3 different kids to gang up on me and suspend me for 3 days. The only friend that I was able to make was an older kid called Devin. Devin was 3 years older than me, but he actually felt sympathy for me and decided to protect me from my bullies. Over the next 3 years, my situation at home quickly began to decline. My younger siblings had picked up on my parents' apathy and my decreased confidence and began to harass me. If they wanted something I had, they took it. They would call me names and play pranks on me. When I told my parents I needed to lighten up, needless to say, this did not help my situation. My parents also became extremely harsh on me, and I did get beaten from time to time. Towards the end of my first year of middle school, I came home from the library, and I saw a letter from the middle school that I wanted to go to. I immediately opened. It was a letter declining the application for YB1 and YS. I did not see anything for me, so I went to my parents. They punished me for opening their mail. But when I pushed it, they told me that YB1 and YS did more to deserve going to that middle school. Mind you, at this time, and before, I had near perfect grades. I argued that if they could afford to send YB1 and YS, then I should be able to go. I was beaten for talking back and opening my parents' mail. I will be honest. During this time, I did try self-harm. Whenever I did, my situation would briefly improve. I became the center of my parents' world. Teachers would intervene to stop the bullying, and even some of the kids at school would begin to be friendly to me. But after a week, things would quickly slide back. The only person who was actually there for me in my life was Devin. One day, during the early part of 8th grade, I broke down and told Devin about my biological father. I had been having thoughts about why he abandoned me when he found out. It was partially his fault that my life was the way it was. There was a lot else I said, but that was the key part. During my venting session, I revealed that my mom had let my dad's first and last name slip recently, and I knew his name. So Devin offered to help me research my dad. That day, Devin and I went to his house and began to essentially cyberstalk him. My biodad was and still is a college professor at a research university about 200-ish miles from where we lived. We also found that he was married, and I learned I had another younger sister, and my stepmom was pregnant. That night, Devin and I hatched a plan, which we would carry out the following day. I came to school, and as soon as I stepped off the bus, I went to the high school student parking lot and got into Devin's car, and we left. We arrived at the university around noon. After parking, Devin immediately went to the student center, asked which office my dad worked at, and got directions. We went there, and he was gone for lunch. But when he came back about an hour later, he saw us sitting outside his office, and asked who we were. I remember asking for his name, and then asking if he knew my mom. When he confirmed both, I told him who I was, and that I believed I was his son. I just wanted to say that, as cheesy as it sounds to me looking back, it was Devin who coached me on that. Bastard probably just watched a bad Hallmark drama or something. I remember that he immediately hugged me warmly and started saying, "Oh my God," over and over. He immediately brought us into his office to talk, and he canceled his classes for the day. After that, Devin left, and my dad took me home and introduced me to his family. My stepmom was surprised. She knew my dad had a son, but a 13-year-old popping out of nowhere is kind of a surprise. Then they explained what happened. According to my dad, he was dating my mom during their senior year of college when she told him that she was pregnant. He and my mom were having problems in their relationship, and he suspected that she was cheating on him. He was planning on breaking up with her when she told him. He honestly suspected that it was an attempt to stay together. So he told her that he would be willing to do a paternity test and co-parent, but that he refused to be in a relationship. It turns out that my mom was cheating on him with my stepdad, and when he had a much more positive response, she cut contact with my dad. When my dad married my stepmom, he told her that he may have had a child, and they decided to look my mom up on Facebook and see a few pictures of me. Remember how I have no significant features with my mom or stepdad? It turns out I look almost identical to my dad. So, he knew immediately. He had reached out to my mom via Facebook, but she immediately blocked him. He had considered getting a lawyer, but figured it would be all but impossible to get custody or even visitation rights without a paternity test, which my mom and stepdad could have blocked. I told him everything that my mom and stepdad had put me through, even more than what had been said above. When I finished, I was crying, and my stepmom was consoling me. After it was all out, my dad wordlessly stood up and went into the next room, called a lawyer, and then called the police. The police, social services, and CPS all showed up and took me into custody. To summarize everything, I was taken out of my mom's and stepdad's custody and became a temporary ward of the state. A paternity test was taken, and it confirmed everything that my dad told me. Then I was placed into my dad and stepmom's care, and I was given a restraining order until I reached the age of 18. I won't pretend that everything was perfect. Looking back on it, I did cause some strain on my dad's marriage because he immediately favored me over my half-siblings. My dad and stepmom did recover, and they placed sensible boundaries. I was enrolled in a much better school where I was able to make real friends. I never forgot Devin. We stayed in contact, but due to the distance, our contact isn't as consistent as it used to be. We still talk regularly, though. Devin is doing well. After high school, he became an underwater welder for an oil company, which apparently pays really well. We have met for drinks and to catch up. I asked him why he protected me. He said he wasn't sure, but for whatever reason, when he saw me getting bullied, it just caused something to snap. He also said that he kind of saw me as someone who needed a big brother figure in his life, and that it was the right thing to do. After high school, I went on to college, and I was fairly popular as my confidence had been completely rebuilt. I majored in biology and minored in geology. I am currently a PhD student working in paleontology. I love it. I get to go on university-sponsored digs. Normally they are in the States, but last year I got to go to South Africa and Namibia. My mom and stepdad reached out to me a few months ago to try and get me to help tutor YB2 and YS. YS had dropped out of college a few years ago because it was too difficult for her. Although she wanted to go back and finish her program, YB2 wants to get into a good college next year, but doesn't have to grade and wants help studying for the SATs. During that conversation, I noticed my heart was beating out of control and that I was having difficulty breathing. I am certain that it was a panic attack, but I had never had anything like that. So I just hung up on my mom and sat on the couch. The following day, I began to receive a couple of texts from my mom's kids asking for help, and I blocked all of their numbers. Afterwards, I didn't hear from them until I received a barrage of emails from them on my university email. Essentially, they were apologizing for how they treated me and saying that they wanted to fix things so we could be a family. Originally, I had decided that I wanted to send an email back, telling them that I wanted no further contact, and that even hearing from them was causing a traumatic response over a decade later, and that I feel the only reason that they are reaching out is because they want a free tutor. I never sent it. Instead, I decided simply to block them. In April, I went on a dig in Texas and received a call from the police saying they had been called to my apartment because they had been told that someone had broken in. It was YB1 trying to get in contact with me. I told the police that he was not supposed to be there and that I would like trespassing charges pressed. As it was a first offense, he was able to plea bargain it down to 100 hours of community service. I got back home at the end of May, and I haven't heard from them yet. I think that they got the idea and decided to stop contacting me. Regardless, I have a strong relationship with my dad. We have spent a long time building that relationship and making up for lost time. I have a good relationship with my younger half-siblings from my dad and stepmom. I play with them and spend a lot of time with them. But there is a fairly big age gap between us. My stepmom and I are on good terms. I'm not sure how to describe our relationship, but I would say that while she didn't completely replace the role of a mom in my life, she did become a motherly figure. I have no idea if that makes sense, but it is the best way I can phrase it. I am not entirely sure how to end this. There might be something like a message here, but probably not. I really did just feel that I should share my story. Although I have been sitting here, and after initially writing this, when I was recalling the abuse I suffered and started to proofread it, I started to feel extremely anxious. I think that I may have some suppressed trauma and will be looking to get therapy. Second story. After 24 years of NC, my entitled brother, who bullied and outed me to our homophobic parents, forcing them to choose between me being referred to as a fat asterisk got or him causing me to get kicked out and disowned, contacted me, begging to reconcile, saying his son is gay and needs my help. I just ignored him and maintained NC. I grew up gay in a conservative household. I kept it to myself, but I'm sure everyone knew or had a feeling I was gay. My brother, Rick, certainly suspected me from an early age and made sure to bully me mercilessly growing up. In high school, I started dating Mike, whom I married later in life. We kept it quiet, but somehow Rick found out. For the next 8 years, he blackmailed me into everything, from getting him pot to shaving my head and threatening to tell our parents about Mike. Then, when I was 24, I brought Mike home for Thanksgiving. My sister was there with her husband. Rick was there with the girl he knocked up. I brought my roommate. I had no intention of coming out, but I think my parents knew. It was kind of a don't ask, don't tell. Everything seemed okay until Rick started drinking. Then everything went to hell. He said that it was wrong for our parents to have someone like me at their table. Because I was dating Mike. Because I was a fagot. He said he couldn't allow me to be a part of his life because I could be a child effer. He actually said that right there, in front of our grandmother. Then he told our parents to choose. Me and Mike, or him, his girlfriend, and their future grandkid. My parents asked if I was gay. Mike squeezed my hand under the table, and I said yes. They asked us to leave. Since then, my contact with my family has been minimal, although I still keep in contact with my sister, who reached out the next day. My parents weren't there at my wedding. A few years ago, my mother started calling on Christmases and birthdays. I let those calls go to voicemail. Needless to say, I have not spoken to Rick. I miss my parents. I don't miss Rick. I ask my sister about my parents. I don't ask my sister about Rick. About 2 weeks ago, I received a message from Rick on Facebook. It's a long, rambling letter of apology. Rick says he now knows how I must have felt growing up because his son came out to him as gay. He says he loves his son and wants to support him. So he's a better father than he was a human being, I guess. And he says he wants me to talk to his son. I haven't even met this boy. I'm not his uncle. I'm a strange gay man. Sure, I can offer him tales of overcoming bullying, but I was overcoming his own father. I feel awkward about it. The idea of talking to this poor boy makes me uncomfortable. The thought of talking to Rick makes me break out in a cold sweat. So I haven't responded. But now I'm thinking I should. Mike thinks it would be wrong of me to not help out my nephew because I hold a grudge against my brother. What do I do? TLDR. My older brother bullied me for being homosexual and made my family disown me after he outed me. We haven't spoken in 24 years. He recently contacted me on Facebook because his son, whom I've never met, has come out, and he wants me to help my nephew. I kind of want to tell him to go to hell. But I kind of want to help this poor kid. Edit. It was Thanksgiving. So much for trying to vague up some details. Ida at 2 p.m. EST. Thank you for all of the fantastic support and variety of advice. However, to all those who commented regarding forgiving either my parents or Rick, please stop. It's not going to happen. There are a lot of details I left out because I wasn't seeking advice, and it's just not going to happen. Like that, some of the blackmail involved Rick's friends and Polaroids. And in close to 2 decades, I reached out to my parents numerous times, but they pretended I didn't exist. They sacrificed a son for grandchildren, which I could sort of understand until Mike and I became parents. And they still didn't respond to my pleas for them to meet their adopted grandchildren, even behind Rick's back. So, I repeat, there is no chance of reconciliation. Relevant comments. Grump-a-little alone. I think you should do exactly this, OP. My only caveat is that when or if you speak to your nephew, don't point out specifically to him that it was his father who did this to you. It's not your job to damage and mess with their relationship. Your brother absolutely needs to fully know and understand what he put you through. But keep him anonymous. Tell the stories of what he did to you. Explain what you went through, and he'll know it's him. But I don't think his son needs to know that. I think that's for your brother to tell. That being said, the best of luck to you. I'm sorry you had to endure that, and from your brother no less. You're under no obligation to forgive him. But he does need to understand what he did to you, at the very least for his son's sake. OP. How would I possibly tell this boy about my life without telling him about his father? There was this guy who used to make my life a living hell. Let's call him DCK. And your grandma and grandpa cut me out of their lives because they loved DCK more. In response to another comment, let's say my mother loves me and always has. So what? I needed her to be my mother. I needed her to stand by me, to support me, and to take my side. I needed her to tell the world that she loved me, and, yes, to act like it too. I did not need you to just love me. Just having love doesn't make a family worth having. I love her too, but it's not enough. It's not nearly enough. Update. Thanks for the advice, guys. I read your comments, which for the most part solidified my resolve to keep doing what I was doing. That is nothing. As many Redditors noted, Rick and his son have a ton of resources, support groups, counselors, etc. at their fingertips. They don't need a disowned stranger to help. However, you guys also raised a bunch of questions I wanted answered. Namely, how much does this boy know about me, if at all? And how much does he know about his father's role as my bully? Following the advice some of you gave, I called my sister, Sally, shortly after I posted the original thread and told her about Rick's Facebook message. She was surprised, but happy that he contacted me. She was thrilled that he apologized. She was confused about what he said regarding her nephew, Harry. According to Sally, Harry, who is 16, has not come out, at least not to her. She described him as a rather average kid, and while she didn't speculate on his sexuality, she did say he wasn't nearly as obvious as I had been. Sally called me after Memorial Day, asking to see the Facebook message. She spoke to Rick, and apparently I misread the intent of his rambling. Rick wanted to apologize, first and foremost. As for Harry, apparently Rick suspects he may be gay, and is worried that because of his history with me, his son is pulling away from him and wouldn't feel comfortable coming out. So to answer the questions you guys raised, Harry knows all about my being his disowned gay uncle, and exactly why I was disowned. Though I doubt he knows the extent of how badly his father harassed me. I was under the impression that my name was never mentioned in Rick's family. But apparently they talk about me all the time as the man who won't forgive and get over the past. That kind of stings, partly because he just contacted me for the first time, and partly because it's true. Also, apparently, Rick really thought that we'd make up and become pals, and so when I spoke with his son, I wouldn't mention what he had done to me, or at least that it was he who did it. TLDR, I called my sister, who spoke with my older brother for me. My nephew may or may not be gay, but he knows about me, and that his dad kicked me out of the family. My brother wants to fix things between us so his son won't despise him if he is actually gay. Relevant comments. Kyle Overstreet. My knee-jerk reaction is being pissed at the sister and the rest of the family. Not a single person mentioned how OP was treated at all. Ever. The kid has nothing to reference. Did OP's family carefully orchestrate how to completely rewrite and sanitize OP's upbringing and existence? Even if they talk about OP, I feel like the kid, at some point, will ask what really happened and ask for more details. The fact that no one in this family seems to talk about OP honestly, including his sister, is f***ed up. OP. Sally and I remained close. She picked me, and I think the ultimatum was directed to our parents. She always wanted us to reconcile, but she respected my asking her to keep talk of that side of the family to a minimum. Devals. I read your comments, which for the most part solidified my resolve to keep doing what I was doing. That is nothing. I just want to note that relationships tend toward a philosophy that promotes extreme selfishness in the way one chooses to live. See. Woman abandons her young nieces or nephews to the foster care system without a second look. Relationships say, "You go, girl." It's not necessarily the right way to live, as people here seem to confuse, but simply the trend that emerges as a result of this subreddit's user demographics: young, unattached middle-class millennials, and the self-serving nature of their advice, that is, that to consistently prize your own wants and needs over those of others is here framed as righteous and healthy, is to be expected of those who are, incidentally, so successful at doing so in their own lives. Not everyone has to be a hero. But if everyone lived by relationships philosophy, we wouldn't have any SUV, and the world would be a SHT tier place. What I'm trying to say, OP, is that you passed on a chance to reconnect with family, heal old wounds, mend important fences, and potentially help a young man through a potentially life-threateningly difficult time in his life that you should be able to empathize with easily. Don't think that just because this subreddit cheers you on, you made the right choice. I think it's sad and conveniently self-serving that you gave more weight to their voices than that of your life partners, and even the family you still love. Poor show, man, poor show. Regardless of the injuries you suffered in your youth, you've grown into a selfish man who feels comfortably entitled to hold grudges. But this is in no way a virtue, no matter how much Reddit tells you what you want to hear. OP. There is no grudge. I don't wish bad things to happen to Rick, and certainly not to his family. But I have my scars, and my brother is certainly not entitled to my time, attention, or forgiveness. I'm not proud of my issues, but I recognize them. So the question originally, and I guess now, is which is greater? My discomfort at having to deal with my brother and open up about the myriad of abuse he put me through, or the assistance, if any, that my reliving this to a young man who's never met me might provide him. The advice here didn't land me on act selfishly and be proud, but it did point out that the assistance Harry could receive from others would be just as good, if not way better than mine, and it would come to those others at a much smaller cost than it would to me. Third story. My spineless husband expects me to leave my job on my big day to please his entitled parents, acting like a housewife, doing all the house chores and cooking. Then I overhear him saying he wants to divorce me to his brother for I refusing to act like his circus monkey. Background. I 24F am not Nigerian. My husband 27M is. My husband comes from a strict traditional family. I do not. My husband and I do not have a traditional marriage, and we are both fine with this. I have a much higher salary than my husband, which allows us to live a wealthy lifestyle that we could not afford with just his job. I also don't really enjoy cooking or cleaning. He does most of it happily. We also don't want children, even though his family is pressing us about when I will be pregnant. Before my husband and I got married, he made me promise to pretend to be a traditional housewife, only when I'm around his parents so we can marry. Because I was not Nigerian, I was afraid his parents would not let us marry at all. But when I told them I wanted to marry their son, so I could take care of him, cook, clean, and nurture his children, they agreed. Keeping this promise was easy. We only saw his parents 2-3 times a year, and we would mostly visit their home. His parents don't know I work, and they think my husband's job provides us with our lifestyle. Recently, we had a scheduled 5-day visit to his parents, where we would stay at their house. I took off work like I usually do for these visits and practiced cooking Nigerian dishes and being the perfect housewife. A few days before we went to their house, my mother-in-law called us, saying she was ill. Nothing serious, just the common cold. But she is very dramatic and said we should not come because she will get us sick, and to reschedule the visit. We rescheduled it for 2 weeks later. This would be fine if I did not have a work conference. I was chosen to attend a leadership conference by my work, and this was a huge deal to me. I would be gone for 2 days. I cannot express how big this was to me, and my husband was very happy for me. I found out about the conference months in advance, and I did not want to miss it. I told my husband that he would have to reschedule with his parents because I would not be missing this conference for anything. He said his parents wouldn't let us reschedule, and I would just have to miss my thing. This made me very upset because it was a huge honor, and I have been excited about it for months. He reminded me of my promise and how I would have to miss it. I told him no way and went to the conference, then to his parents' house, and I told them I was visiting my mom, who wasn't feeling well. His parents were upset at me because apparently my imaginary sick mom can wait, and my husband needs to control his wife more. We returned home, and he was extremely upset at me, saying I broke our promise. Later, I heard him talking on the phone to his brother in Hausa, saying that he should never have married me and should have married whoever his parents picked for him, and saying that he is considering divorce, though he never said any of this to me. Reddit. What should I do? Relevant comments. Tell your husband to grow some balls. If he gets divorced, he's going to have to explain to his parents why his lifestyle went to SHT after the divorce. OP, thank you for the reply. This is a very valid point right here. I am not a lawyer, and I fear going to one because then it sounds like this is actually happening. We never signed a prenup, so will he take half of my money? Sorry for asking for legal advice. NTA. But you are the arsehole if you don't consider leaving him. You were wrong to accept this arrangement in the first place. I get that love makes us stupid, but this is beyond just a little white lie. This is the end of your success and dreams. If he said that to his brother, protect yourself and lawyer up. Get out of this SHT show before it eats you alive. This was never going to work long term. Lies are always uncovered, especially ones of this magnitude. You have to keep stacking lie upon lie until you can't keep them straight. Do you want to live your whole life in a lie like this? That lie could shatter at any moment. Can you spend your life pretending to be someone you aren't to appease people who will never accept you? And when the inevitable happens, no children, what lie can you cover that up with? They're never going to approve of you. And your husband doesn't approve of you, either, if he's asking you to miss significant career opportunities to appease his family. You've sunk years into this silliness. Don't waste even more. OP, thank you. I needed to hear this. The real question is, why would you get married if you literally had to lie about yourself and every aspect of your relationship? Hope you got a prenup. OP, we didn't get a prenup, unfortunately. We got married because of 1. Love, and 2. At the time, we were making about the same. So lying about who I was wasn't that big of a deal because I really wasn't anybody. What can I say? Love makes you do crazy things. OP voted as NTA. Update. First of all, thank you to everyone for your replies. I went through all of them and replied as much as I could. Thank you to everyone for being so supportive and helpful. I overheard the conversation 5 days ago. I told him I needed space after our fight and went to a hotel. A lot of people said lawyer up. I did not want to do this at first because that makes everything seem all too real, and like this divorce will actually happen. Also, my husband was speaking a different language on the phone with his brother. I speak it well, but not fluently. I could have totally misunderstood. But I realized, whether I misunderstood or not, I never should have agreed to lie. A lot of people who say divorce clearly do not understand how difficult it is, especially when you love someone. I came back home and told him that if he didn't tell his parents the truth, I would consider separation. He says that that is off the table because his parents will cut both of us off, and probably his brother. We will be fine if his parents cut us off, but his brother won't be. We decided to see a marriage counselor. If we do end up divorcing, I will bring pay stubs, receipts, and other evidence to his parents to show he was lying to them, and they will cut him off. Again, thank you to everyone for your input. Edit. For everyone who says our relationship was built on a lie, it is not. My relationship with his parents, on the other hand. Relevant comments. What does your husband bring to your marriage? Sincerely. Because he doesn't respect you as an individual, or your career playing housewife to appease his parents is most important. He doesn't contribute as much money, yet decides he has final say in everything, not that he'd have that right, even if he were the breadwinner. He's willing to lie to the people he respects most, his parents, which tells me he's more than willing to lie to you about things he deems you unworthy of knowing. Please see a divorce lawyer, OP, just to know where you'll stand if things escalate. It doesn't mean you have to go in there committed to divorce. It means you're informed on how to legally protect yourself if your husband decides to punish you when he demands a separation. Please look into separating your finances if you haven't already. No responses. Well, I went and checked my notes, and I didn't find why the F his brother is your problem. Also, his parents cut off his brother because of your husband. Also, how is it to live knowing you have balls bigger than your husband? Geez, lying to his parents. Ashamed of you or what? He is 27, not 13. It's time to stand up, man. You would be better off finding someone. You say you love him. But how can you live with that when he tells you to skip your work because of his parents? Oh, wait, not work. Your thing. Common. It was a whole arse conference. You were not there to hand napkins. You have a career. You need someone who actually shows how proud he is of you. I said on the original post that she should leave him anyways, and she seems to think she loves him, so it's hard. Honestly, I am just laughing very hard at that one. I looked at both notes and agreed, there was never an I marry you and your brother from now on till death do us part. So OP asked her husband to get honest with his parents, and he refused, saying that it was completely off the table. Another instance where his parents' happiness trumps her concerns. And then he ups the ante by saying it will ruin both his and his brother's lives. The pro-gaslight right there doesn't even need a spark to burn. What OP did not realize was that her request was discarded without compromise, and she is now somehow also responsible for her Bill's happiness. Soon, she will have to financially help him out to settle his life. Otherwise, her husband will be blamed by his parents for living lavishly, while his brother suffers. This clock is ticking. Another thing OP refuses to realize is that she is, and always has been, on borrowed time. Her husband will always pick his parents' side, and his parents will always back her husband. These two are irrefutable and unchangeable facts. She will always have to compromise, and in the end, her husband will marry the woman his parents want. Just as soon as he has drained her dry, or has no more use for her. I know this from my background, and no matter how I review it, let's just say this movie is a repeat with just different characters. At this point, the clock is as loud as the dial-down sound from 24. For such a hard-working and smart woman, it is a little disappointing that she is not prepared with a lawyer on standby right now. We are strangers online, and this is a tragedy waiting to be confirmed. For us, we will move on. That's our nature as Redditors. For OP, she will always have it. I've been married for 14 years, and we've done marriage counseling a few times for different things. Counseling is not going to do anything because he will not change anything. He will not tell his parents the truth, and he will keep disrespecting you. You should instead go to individual therapy to learn why you're putting up with this in a partner. You deserve more. This is spot on. I found that doing couples counseling without each partner having done their own therapy rarely works in the long run. Each person needs to know their motivations, triggers, and especially their self-worth before they can healthily navigate complicated relationship issues. When I'm struggling with difficult relationship dynamics and decisions, I come back to a version of the Serenity Prayer. Whatever the issue is, either accept it, change it, or leave it. All else is madness. Of course, what's implied is that we must make a decision. Otherwise, we'll stay in a constant state of dysregulation. Best of luck. OP agreed. We are both looking into individual therapists right now. we realize that we have deeper, separate problems. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.